Joining.
Here we go. Awesome. We love that doorbell. Here we go. Good to see everybody. Got a couple more jumping in. Jeremiah, I haven't seen you for a while. How are you?
I know I've been traveling and seeing Sean down at AVSI all over the world.
Exactly. I was going to say we were out on the West Coast.
Yes. Yay. So I saw you, Jeremiah, but I didn't get to see you, Sean. I heard you were there on maybe a different time than I was or something.
Yeah, I was only there. I think Jeremiah, I got to go. I think I was there like one day, day and a half. So pretty quick.
Yeah. It's always good to get together. And I know people are already, looking for that networking opportunity. So this is great that we have this conversation going today. And I'm going to let a couple more people into the room. They're still out there. Carolyn, hi, how are you? So I always ask, I always start off by who's got a flying story, who got to get out and fly, and Carolyn, sorry. We actually finally got to get together. It's so funny. We live so close. And yet we never get to fly together. And we finally did. Yay.
Yes, and I showed you my little pad where I practice and I go fly when I want to. I need to get the drones fly.
Yes, it's always good. Keep up with those stick skills because if we don't, just like riding a bicycle, you remember how you just get rusty. And so it's always good to stay up with that, right?
Yeah, practice, very important.
Yes. Does anybody else have any great drone stories before I start jumping off and getting on to the announcements that I need to make? Anybody get out? Sheila, did you get out and fly?
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. It's got a little windy action though going on around here lately, so a little too windy, but yeah, got some good flag flipping stuff. Flag Day's coming. Don't forget to make a video.
Oh, that's right. Yes, you had
Mhm.
said that. That's right. All right. Great to see everybody here today. And I am going to kick this off by letting a few more people in. And then I do have a couple of announcements that I would like to make. First of all, I want to thank the sponsor. Today's sponsor is onthegovideo.biz. So if you are looking for coaching, you want to build your flight skills, build confidence, or if you're looking to develop some standard operating procedures, check out onthegovideo.biz, and there's a link that I'm going to provide for you for a free consultation entry discovery call. And then I also want to share and I'll get you a link for this as well. If you are interested in a course at Embry-Riddle, Dr. Robin Roberts has a course that's about to be kicking off, and that will be June 1st through the 28th, and it's about leadership and motivation. What an amazing opportunity. So I'm going to get you a link. I'm going to put that into our chat here. So today, as we switch over to our awesome spotlight speaker today, we just want to keep it engaging. This is a great time to ask questions, put them into the chat, open up the mic. We want to hear from you. This is networking, and this is an opportunity to ask questions. So I encourage you to keep the conversation flowing. With that, I am going to jump over to our spotlight speaker. So we have Sean with us here today. He's with the Energy Drone Robotics Summit, which is happening in Houston, just a few weeks away. And he's going to tell us a little bit of insights of what's happening, what we can expect, some of the cool new technology. So I'm going to jump over to you, Sean, and make you spotlight for everyone. Hi, Sean.
Hey, Desi, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Great to see everybody and look forward to having a good conversation today and talking a little bit more about drones and particularly in the industrial space, which is kind of the area that we live in around industrial and energy. So if I could, I'll start off by just kind of running through a quick update on the coalition and what we have planned for June. And then let's start talking a little bit more about some of the technologies, use cases, trends, things that we're seeing, and answering any questions along the way. So if I could, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get that up for everybody so that you can see some information as we go through it. It always helps to have a visual, right? We're in the drone business. We like to see things, whether that's thermal, LiDAR, however we're seeing them, we like data. So one of the things that we're excited about this year is we have several groups that are coming together underneath our umbrella. And it really is amazing to see how far it's grown over the 8 years. Things around like digital twins, around some of the use cases as far as like emergency management, and unfortunately the need and how drones though can be used for good there. And methane strategies, which is a huge area right now in the oil and gas business, all the way through the value chain. There's a lot of rules coming about on a state level in particular, and then also on the federal level around methane, and drones and robots are able to help us there. For those just very briefly who aren't familiar with us, and that is often the case, Energy Drone and Robotics Coalition has been around for, as I mentioned, 8 years. We have about 12,000 folks in the community, and these folks come from the asset owner operator side, from the service provider side, and then certainly solutions, right? Our technology and vendors who make everything go. So that's really the areas that we cover. 71 different countries. Quite a few of these folks are based in North America, over 80%. When people say energy, what are you talking about? Is it just oil and gas because you're down in the Petro Metro, Sean, in Houston? The answer is no, it's not just oil and gas. We cover everything in that very large sandbox. So that means we're covering power and utilities, we're covering renewables, we get into industrial engineering and construction, nuclear, transportation and maritime. So all the different ways that energy can be transported or utilized, those are the big areas that we focus on. So that's kind of our areas as far as interest. The companies, I think everybody's pretty familiar with these. I mean, it's large oil and gas, large utilities, mid-sized pipelines, storage tank companies, engineering companies, obviously, as well as a lot of rural co-ops. Everybody who you would imagine is involved with energy and is either launching or scaling or already enterprise-wide with the drone and robotics program. We like to say we're from the stars to the seafloor, so we're pretty much anything uncrewed, we're dealing with it. So whether that's satellites, high altitude, lower altitude drones, as far as crawlers and everything that goes into the pipes and the tanks, and then of course our subsea. We try to service the community year round through all these different channels. So whether it's social media, which is obviously on the daily, or it's our weekly news, or it's our individual events, websites that we're going up to and updating, our use case libraries. We try to inform everybody as fast as possible for our particular sector. There's a lot of other great organizations and outlets out there that can help you on a daily and weekly basis for the broader commercial and other sectors that are involved. And so we certainly know where we fit in just the industrial. And then I'll kind of end it up on what are we planning for just a couple of weeks from now. In June, we're going to have about 1,500 folks coming together with about 100 companies showcasing technology. And in addition to some of those areas I mentioned earlier that we have co-located, we've really gotten into a lot of different, I would say, working groups within the Energy Drone and Robotics Coalition, like, when we look at marine robotics, when we look at, just robotics UAVs, inspection, maintenance, and repair, methane, as I mentioned earlier, a emerging area, I call it, for the middle mile industrial drone delivery and autonomous cargo. We're obviously not talking about the already much faster developing retail side or medical deliveries. We get into the technical side with geophysics and remote sensing. That's looking for things that are buried underwater, underground with drones, whether that's a pipeline, an orphan well, an old brownfield chemical or petrochemical plant. They can use drones fitted with magnetometers and other devices, bathymetric to check those out. And then, as you would imagine, over 8 years, we've gone from just the capture and collection of data. Now it's a lot about what are we doing with the data? How are we making it actionable? How are we actually going to take that data and utilize it for usually multiple stakeholders, right? Whether it's regulatory, inspection, GIS, 3D mapping, digital twin. You have so many people now in an organization who need this data to use for multiple reasons. So as you would imagine, there's a lot of breakouts that go into those areas as well. So those are some of the things that we're covering. And then we're excited, of course, to have drone responders back with us. And this focus is just around emergency management. So we look at industrial, and if we are getting into public safety, it's how public safety is adjacent to the industrial and obviously gets interactive around drones and drone usage for incidents that occur, whether it's a wildfire with a power utility, explosion in a petrochemical or refining, or a tropical storm, as that impacts obviously the offshore and onshore oil and gas systems, as well as power utilities. So I'll pause there, but that's kind of the layout of who we are and what we've got cooking for what's coming up in June in a couple weeks here in Houston.
Wow, doesn't that sound exciting? So many different verticals. And so I know you've actually been on the show many times before, and it's exciting to see how it's grown. So this is your 8th year?
8th year, Desi. Yep.
Man, awesome, awesome. So I know as time goes on and the whole industry has evolved, there's been certain key factors, like you had mentioned, data and such like that. But I know there are certain verticals that have really come into play that are so important now. And so one of them that I know has become a little bit more popular would be methane detection and such like that. So I'm assuming you have something along those lines in that vertical as well.
Absolutely. So if you think about it, with methane detection, you've got a couple different things to unpack. So we have it first in the IRA, not the one you invest in, but the one that the Biden administration brought about to allow for infrastructure to be built and increase the energy transition. There's some methane rules there where you're actually going to see costs against methane releases that are not taken care of or not monitored. So you've actually got a cost of methane release in that. And then you also have the EPA bringing out additional. So there's going to be a lot. I mean, there's actually, if you just look at, it's a lot to unpack, so I'll try to keep focused on it. But just take California, take one state, and the amount of regulations they have in pipelines. Let's just take pipelines. The amount of pilots you're going to need to fly pipelines in order to monitor, as well as well pads and petrochemical and refining, all the different places that methane can escape. It's a tremendous amount of flights that are going to need to be taking place in order to monitor all this, in order to detect the methane in a timely basis, quantify the methane releases, and then work with crews to get those mitigated so that they are fixed and the methane's no longer leaking, which stops the process of fines and penalties. It's going to be a huge market, and it's something that's developing very rapidly.
So if we were attending the summit, is this not only where we would find information about what products are being used, but would we be able to find an educational track as far as the regulatory issues and such like that?
Yeah, so that's the advantage, I think, for anybody in not just our event, any event you go to, the advantage usually is that you can, see things in both phases, right? So on the show floor, the expo, you're able to see the technology, right? You're able to see what are these payloads that are able to detect methane, the different processes people are using, because it's not one size fits all. There's different alternative technologies that people are utilizing on drones, on robots, that in order to detect, quantify methane. And then you go upstairs, in our case, or across the hall, wherever you happen to be at a conference, and you go and you get to hear people talking about whether it's a roundtable or fireside chat, talking about the trends, the regulatory, and what's happening, or it's people unpacking use cases, on the Learning Lab stage on the expo floor, where they're talking about very specifically, this is how we do it. Or it's an energy major talking about their methane program, how it's developing and where they're going next. These are awesome things. I think that's the advantage of going to a live event, is you're able to connect with and hear all that information. And while you're doing that, you're around the people who are also interested in that particular use case. So if you're looking to grow your business as a service provider or a solution provider, you're able to attend an event and connect with the very people who may be developing the area that's going to help you take your business to the next level. So I think it's exciting.
I do too. I do too. And so just looking at some of the people that are attending today, you had mentioned several things, and knowing the background from some of the people, one of the things that I'd like to ask is, what about the side of agriculture? So what do you have as far as a plan or availability for if somebody was involved with agriculture?
Great question. And without putting them on the spot, I would have to put someone like Jeremiah up on something like that, because we honestly don't cover agriculture. So there is as big as the sandbox of energy is, Desi, I have to say we are we do know where we start and stop. So
Okay.
there's a lot that we get into, but agriculture is not one of them. And honestly, we look at adjacent industries to get information and look at what technology for robotics and drones. And I certainly look at things like Commercial UAV News, who gives us great information on all the commercial sectors, including agriculture. But that's not one that we actually cover.
Okay. I see a lot of robotics within that ag field. And so that's why I thought maybe there was something incorporated there. You
Yeah,
did
no, there's a
mention,
lot going on in that market. I mean,
yeah,
there's autonomous, a variety of different, apparatus or things that they're using that are amazing, for whether it was drones for spraying and for doing analysis of crops and things like that. I mean, it is very interesting. We've run a couple stories in our what else section of the news about like wineries that are using to decide when to pick the grapes and things like that. And they're utilizing drones and different payloads. So it's very fascinating where agriculture is growing, but it's not something that Energy Drone and Robotics Coalition really gets into.
got it, got it, got it. And you did mention that you have opportunities for underground detection. And so that's another direction that I thought, oh, is very popular within some of the people that I am acquainted with. And so what are some of the platforms and availability for learning in that direction?
So when we get into that area, and that's very applicable across multiple commercial sectors, right? Because if you think about like utilities like pipelines or storage and things like that, these are also utilized by utilities like, not just a big natural gas, where we're doing exploration, production, and pipeline shipping it with pump stations all the way. But then you start to get into like your local distribution companies in cities and towns, your local utility that delivers gas to your house. And so if you think about it, all that infrastructure, a bunch of it was built decades and decades ago. And so to be able to monitor that infrastructure to try to prevent any leaks, and obviously and look at corrosion, so you can decide hopefully and before a leak occurs what you need to be able to replace. There's a whole bunch of asset owners, we call them, who own and operate these pipelines throughout the US, thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of miles of this. And so in order to do that above ground, you've got some advantages because obviously you can identify and see it very easily. But when it goes below ground, you've got to start using other technology attached to the drones and payloads. So like magnetometers, things along those lines, so that you're able to detect corrosion and predict potentially what you need to replace. So that's a variety of different things that we put them under one track, and it's called drone geophysics and remote sensing. And that's the one that does the most around bathymetric surveys, also around detecting of, like I say, pipelines, orphan wells, which for those of you who aren't in the energy industry, those are wells that existed many decades ago by companies that aren't even around anymore, that have been merged or what have you, and people forget they're there. And they could be leaking all kinds of things, methane, oil, etc. And so we have to detect them and find out where they are so that they can be capped.
Oh, very, very interesting, and such a moving forward industry that is just vital. That, like you said, it's forgotten, and they don't even realize that it's there, and there's such a need.
No, they don't. They don't. And you think about not just the payloads have to be developed and then technology wise, but you're talking about heavy lift drones. I mean, these things have to carry a much bigger than a normal photogrammetry or RGB type payload or even a thermal. I mean, these are heavier payloads that have to be suspended, and they're flying very low over the ground. I mean, these type of things, when you're detecting underground utilities, underground oil field, brown fields, like we say, which are places that people want to develop into, and who knows what, a neighborhood, for goodness sakes. You got to find everything that used to be there. And so to fly these drones, they're very heavy what they have to carry payload wise. And obviously, anytime we fly drones, the longer you can fly, the better. So heavy lift is definitely interesting to watch what they're building to carry some of these things for drone geophysics and remote sensing.
Will there be a lot of opportunities to see the various drones that are going to be used in robotics, as well as the educational side, the tracks that you offer?
Yeah, absolutely, Desi. So we have both the advantage of, obviously, on the show floor, you're seeing them. Usually they're showing some sort of video of what it looks like in the field. And then we do actually have an area, the demo zone, which is built for both drones and robots. So the ground is kind of the playground for the robots. So our quadrupeds and humanoids and crawlers can all do their acrobatics and work in the bottom part. And then obviously it's a drone cage as well. So some of the heavier and other drones are able to fly and showcase what they're able to do in a small area.
Awesome. So I know you've highlighted a lot of things. I'm coming up with all these different questions in different directions and such, but one of the things I wanted to make sure that we have pointed out is that you've indicated that we have gone aerial to underwater. So it's not just the drone industry. Can you share a little bit about the various verticals that we'll be able to see?
Sure. So when we first started, we were nothing but UAVs. We were drones. That was the focus, and that was obviously one of the faster growing emerging areas for energy. They were starting to use them for surveying, mapping, inspection. But over time, just a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, we started to see where it became uncrewed systems or robotics, with drones actually being kind of a sub, the aerial drones being a sub category, and they started looking at autonomous operations. So we started to see where a lot of energy companies in all different areas, power and utilities, started looking at the tech that they used for these individual projects of inspection, mapping, surveying. It no longer was dependent upon it had to be an aerial drone. In some cases, they wanted to see combinations where they're able to use, let's say, a quadruped. I think a lot of people are very familiar with those, all the different dogs that are out there from the various manufacturers, as well as the payloads they could put on those in combination with an aerial drone. And so we started seeing combinations or they would favor one over the other. And then when we start to get into some of the dirtiest work, obviously, and the dull, dirty, dangerous, that we look for drones and robots to help us out and to make things safer and more efficient in the energy industry. When we get to the dirty part, we started seeing a lot of the crawlers, right? Because then we started getting into not just inspecting energy assets, but actually doing the cleaning and maintenance around it. And so we started to see that occur. And now we're seeing that come full circle where we're seeing drones that are being utilized for painting, for cleaning. I mean, a variety of different use cases that are going back to aerial. But that's where we started to get to the ground. And then the subsea, as you would imagine, the marine market in energy assets is offshore wind, offshore oil and gas, anything that goes below the water. So the same types of inspections that you're wanting to do above water, you got to be able to do that below. Maritime for oil ships that are carrying, or what we call FPSOs, floating production systems, which actually both produce the oil and carry it. So we've got a variety of different maritime assets. And then in the utility industry, you've got a ton of use cases for marine robotics, right? Nuclear. I mean, think about not having to put people into areas within a dome and in areas that are nuclear radiation, and being able to use robots that are able to swim. Intake valves, that's how you cool almost every power plant in the world, is being usually, there's some body of water that's used to either help create steam, or it's helping to cool the power plant. And so you have water coming in and out of coal plants and natural gas plants. All of those are marine robotics. So it's amazing to see how much area has started to take place, as well as, of course, surface vehicles within the marine market as well, to be able to take things from ship to shore, ship to ship. And we're seeing a lot happen in the world of defense in those areas, that we're able to take those use cases and technology and apply it to energy for offshore rigs and ports and things like that.
Well, fantastic. So I want to let everybody know you're welcome to open your mic and ask questions. There's also a couple questions that have popped up into our chat as well. And so let's jump over and take a look at what might be happening in the conversation there. Before we dive into, I'd like to know a little bit more about some of the tracks that you offer. David has said, I am learning so much tonight. Thank you. Where can we get more info on software that links the drone to the laptop for mapping and auto flight control?
Yeah, great question, David. And so I can give you several sources that are going to be helpful for you. So one, if you go to Commercial UAV News, they have a directory. And that's going to be a spot that you're going to be able to see in Commercial UAV Expo. They have a directory that you're able to look at. Drone Industry Insights, DII, who has incredible reports and information on the industry. They do a market map. It's super cool. It's a PDF, and it's gotten so mammoth, you kind of have to blow it up on a big screen. But they do a really good job of tracking different categories. So when we get into things like software, drone software that, whether it's for auto flight control, mapping, fleet management, they break down categories all the time as far as software. So I think that's another great one. And then the third one I'll pop up is Unmanned Systems Technology. They do a really good job in their directory of having usually multiple participants who can help you out with software and fleet management. So those are all really good possibilities for you. And then, of course, I'm going to put in the plug. Great to go to trade shows, because obviously software is a big key component, and you get to talk to the people live right there about your particular needs and find out why their solution may be the best one for you.
Truly, there is no replacing that conversation that you can have with somebody. And so
we're big fans.
Yes. And having an opportunity to go to this event would just give that one-on-one conversation with many suppliers that are available out there. Can you share with us a little bit about the educational tracks that you're going to be offering?
Sure, absolutely. So what we tried to do, Desi, is break it out to make it really simple for people to find birds of a feather, right? Because when we first started going at this 8 years ago, everybody was pretty much interested in the same things. They hadn't really started breaking out yet. And so what we started to see is people wanted to connect around their specific use cases. So for instance, you started to see asset owners with the people in their companies. So, your energy companies, power utility, et cetera. You start to see service providers who specifically, and then vendors, right? Solution providers who are creating the drones and robots and the software and the tools, the payloads. They all started to get into specific areas. So you start to break it out, right? Inspection, mapping and surveying, software. You started, data. How are we taking the data and using it? And that's how we started breaking out the tracks. So our industry advisory board of asset owners basically instructed us to, let's make it easy. So we don't break out by power and utilities versus pipelines or oil and gas, because long linear is very similar, whether it's a transmission line or a pipeline. There's so many similarities. So they like meeting together in all the different types of areas around energy. But what they are interested in is breaking out around these tracks. So we've discussed already methane. We discussed inspection, survey, and mapping, marine robotics, right? Very specific type of needs in their environment, as well as if we start to get into some of the data areas around digital twins, as we start to get into, as I mentioned, I think at the very beginning, quickly emerging area of industrial drone delivery and autonomous cargo. Very interested in what we can do there. And that said, talked about the middle mile, as far as huge drones, very large payloads. Basically, these are uncrewed helicopters in a lot of sense. And so what are we doing there that allows us to go into different areas? So those are all different tracks, different groups of sessions that people can go to. And I think I also mentioned, of course, drone responders and the Texas Emergency Management Forum, where we get more into emergency, planning and response for industrials and public safety.
Wonderful. Wow, that is amazing. So I think we should maybe repeat once the actual dates of the event. And that way people can start marking the calendar and seeing about getting there, right? So the dates are
Yeah, so we're June 10th through 12th. So that's Monday through Wednesday in about 2 weeks in Houston. We're on the north side of town, actually in the Woodlands, for those of you who are familiar at all with Houston, which just means it's a beautiful area right on the water that's got tons of shops and restaurants. It's a lot of fun for the 1,500 folks who are going to come together this year for the event. And we're not far from the airport. So that makes it easier for everybody who's flying in.
that is a win-win for everybody right there, right? So when you say 1,500 people that'll be coming, that is amazing growth that you have had over the 8 years. Can you share with us a little bit about what that growth has looked like and maybe some of your exciting points that you've seen?
I think it's a great thing to go over, Desi, is we represent the industry. So we'd love to be able to take credit for it and say, look at how fast we grew. We grew because the industry grew. And that's honestly, all boats rise. And that's really where we live, is in representing all the different stakeholders of the industry. The asset owners have started utilizing drones and robots more. The service providers have gotten larger and more varied, and there's a lot more people who are becoming service providers for survey, mapping, inspection. And then those key technology, solution providers who come from around the world and are, constantly, whether it's a small group coming out of a university or some sort of accelerator for technology, all the way to the companies who already are doing inspections and surveying and mapping and are coming up with solutions that need to be added to the industry. We represent all those. And that's really the exciting part, is to watch that growth of each area of our stakeholders and all of the industry partners that we work with. But it is fun to think back to year one, just 8 years ago, where we had about a dozen companies, who were showcasing all the different areas I just described, and about maybe 100, 120 people came together from those stakeholders. So it's amazing to think back the growth over that time. But when I think about how much the industry has grown, I mean, certainly we've had mergers and acquisitions. We've had some, false starts where some areas started to grow and then really did not grow as fast as you thought they would. But overall, it's been fairly steady growth year over year that I think we're seeing additional uptake as the regulatory environment and the technology come together.
Yes, it has, and it's grown, and it's neat to see how this industry has evolved. And you're right, it's grown itself because this industry, and there's so many different verticals. I had a conversation with somebody the other day that it's like, wow, I didn't even know they were doing that with drones. And so it is neat to see really the expansion that we have in this industry. So if somebody was coming to the event and they wanted to be looking for ways to scale their own business, what are some of the opportunities that they might find at the event?
Yeah. So one of the things I think that's important when somebody's looking to scale their business, obviously we're talking about two sets of stakeholders, right? So the energy asset owners, let's just assume they're going to grow as their area is growing as needs, whether that's energy transition for renewables or whether it's legacy fossil fuels that are still needed in large amounts parts of the world. So those companies are going to grow in their own ways, and they're just looking at new technologies that they can adapt to help. But if we take the other two sets of stakeholders, which are very large, which is first is service operators. So for the service operators, the folks who are actually flying the drones and operating the robots on behalf of the energy asset owners, because they probably have a hybrid program, or in a lot of cases, they're totally outsourced. We were talking with a utility the other day. They don't do any flying of their own. They absolutely outsource all of it, as well as their robotics now, as well as part of their program. So for those companies, I think you're looking at a couple different things. One is obviously the advantages in a trade show. Some of those service companies who've been very successful in this market are exhibiting, right? They tend to take booths or sponsorships. They're bigger companies, but they all started as smaller ones. So where are they getting bigger? How are they getting bigger? What are their best practices? What are their lessons learned? Those individuals are at the event for you to connect with. And so, yes, in a way, everybody's competitive, but you might be looking at a sector that's different. They might be doing things very, very specifically around methane detection. We have several drone operators are coming just because of that. And you may be much more interested in doing stuff around emergency response or public safety or around surveying and mapping. So I think that's is you're able to talk to people and get information from people who've been there, done that, who have already been successful. And then not only just the people who are exhibiting, but there's obviously hundreds of those people attending. So the service operator community is vast and growing, and that you're going to see everything from individuals to larger companies. So I think those people are able to get a lot. Secondarily, they're able to talk directly, and I think this is what makes us a little bit unique in the market. They're able to talk to large numbers of end users. So these are the companies who would hire you. So what is it you're looking for? How do you identify? Do you come out with MSAs, master service agreements, or projects? How are they tendered? How would we get involved with that? Do we need to partner up? So to where we offer this company offers that, and together we're stronger in order to make bids. So we see partnerships, the ecosystem kind of coming together. But I think that's key, is you're actually able to talk to dozens and dozens of people, hundreds total, who come from the energy asset owner stakeholders group. So what is it they're looking for? What are the next things that they want? And some of our roundtables are about that. They'll be talking about, these are the top projects we did in the last year, and these are the types of areas we're going to be focusing on for 2024, 25. So what's next? So I think that's a big area. And then if you're in the solution provider, right? If you're a technology, you manufacture drones or payloads that are utilized for these types of projects, you then have two sets of stakeholders to talk to. You have the service providers we were just talking about, who do the actual work, and you have those end users, the asset owners, and you're able to talk with them. So if you're creating solutions, I think this is a great opportunity for you to be able to, talk with the people who are in essence your customers and or future customers, depending on where you are in your launch of products.
So doesn't that just get you so excited to go and be there and network and have those opportunities? That is just awesome. And just to bring everybody together in that industry is wonderful. Amazing opportunity. I just want to circle back to the chat really quick. Like, if anybody has any comments, questions, or anything they'd like to open up the mic or put into the chat, go right ahead. Um, Also, someone has asked if we would be able to post, and so I'm going to do an ask for Sheila. Some of the links and things that Sean has mentioned about like commercial UAV, where we can get some of that information. Sheila also has posted a couple times in there the link to the energy robotics or drone robotics event. And so there's a lot of good information in there. Sean, is there anything that you would like us to post in there to help people trying to find their way and get more information? We've posted the link for you.
I appreciate that. That's great. I mean, I appreciate you putting it up. EDR Coalition gets you to everything that we offer as far as resources. If you want to go back and look at any of our, online events, as far as you can also see past summits, all of our sessions are available. So you can look at things that are still very relevant from June of last year that are up. So you're able to take a look at that as well as get to our social channels. But I, certainly I recommend people do look at some of the things that I sent out, talked about as far as, the drone industry insights, as far as commercial UAV news and expo, and UST, unmanned systems technology. I think there's a couple with similar names, so I might throw it off, but you'll know when you get to the one I'm talking about because it's got huge directory. I mean, heavy lift drones, fleet software. I mean, they've got lists of all that stuff. It's pretty impressive how fast they're able to get in the new information. So those are all good spots to be able to see what's going on within, if you're looking for service providers or technology providers.
Wonderful. And there is a lot of information going in. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Jeremiah. Got a lot of links going in there again. So that's wonderful. Just out of curiosity, can you put into the chat if you're hoping to go, especially now that you've heard a little bit more about what is expected there and just how amazing that the summit is going to be? It just gets you so pumped up. So I am on this West Coast, so it would be a trek, but worth it. So worth it. I love all the opportunities that it provides, this summit provides.
It's a great time to get together, and we certainly appreciate everybody has a chance to. But for those of you who are not able to make it for whatever reason, we're happy to, know that you'll get a ton of the information comes back out, right? So if you think about it, it's great to get all those experiences live that we've been talking about, throughout today's meeting. But you also have the opportunity to get together and see this in so many different ways. We put it out in the news. As I mentioned, we rebroadcast the sessions. So you're able to see the video and watch the PowerPoints. We're able to break it down for people in webinars where we'll take information that was particularly well received and add to it, reports. So there's ways that you're going to be able to interact and get information. It's really that one-to-one that you get from being there in person, but we'll have different ways that people are able to interact with it throughout the year.
There you go. It continues. It continues, that training, that education, that leading on. Yes. Networking. So some of those sessions would, if someone was to be able to sign up, are some of the sessions going to be available afterwards or during? Will it be live streamed at all?
It's funny you ask that.
Did you freeze him up, Desi? What happened?
I did not freeze, but I saw Jeremiah still move. So I went, well, okay, it's not me.
I know, right? Is it me or is it?
Oh,
Okay,
oh
I have a
no.
question. I know it'll come. And anyone can answer this. So with the air drones getting more and more regulated, what do you need to be underwater? Do you need a certification to do the ROVs? I mean, I would think that you're like a marine biologist and you add that in, kind of, but I honestly have no idea. I would love to have an ROV.
Oh, we lost him.
He'll come back
I
on. It's
guess it
fine.
was on his side. There we go. Let's put that question out. We have some key people here. I saw Adrian just put something in. Maybe he knows. I don't know. We used to do the ROV underwater course through Maricosta College, but I don't recall any certification that they needed. So I would assume it might be that level of what you're
Mhm.
trying to accomplish there. Does anyone in our network right here have deeper conversation on that?
Or the underground piece that he had mentioned, that's interesting too, because the
Yeah.
confined, I can think of the one drone that has the bubble around it, the exoskeleton, kind of like the drone soccer, but that it's a lot more expensive than the drone soccer drones. You know that one I mean, that
Oh, so like the
Flyability. Yeah.
one, go
yeah.
ahead. Wait a second. I didn't hear you, Jeremiah. Go ahead.
Oh, I think you're talking about the one from Flyability, the Elios.
Yeah, yeah, that is an awesome drone.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. And so they use that a lot with the mining operations, but I think they actually have other opportunities and other drones that are available for it as well. And that underground detection. So Valerie's on here, and so I know that they've done quite a bit with the LiDAR and such like that for underground, just trying to assess certain things. There's also another company that is not in the energy field, but is detecting historical things, archaeologists and finds in that respect. And so they're using the LiDAR quite a bit in that direction. So I don't know. Maybe he's not coming back at this
He'll be
point.
back. It's fine. It's fine.
Oh, okay. So Adrian put a comment into our chat. We'll definitely be there. One of the most important conferences of the year. Awesome. Thank you, Adrian. So one other thing that I wanted to ask Sean about, which we had a slight conversation about before we opened up, was he has a Bots and Brews event, and it's a networking, and they got together with a drone event that just recently, I believe, happened in the Texas area, and maybe Adrian knows more about this. And so they're talking about the different drone events that will be on. And Sean mentioned that there's a Bots and Brews, and it's a networking. So I encourage you to reach out to Sean about that. I'm thinking that I don't even have an email from him or
It's
anything.
on Tuesday at 5 o'clock, it looks like, from the schedule. So
Yeah.
Tuesday, the 11th at 5 in the expo hall is when Bots and Brews is going to happen. So
Sounds fantastic.
does.
Yeah, another question that I get asked quite often is, will this be available as a recording? So the recordings go on to the Women in Drones library. It does take a few weeks because we have Johnny who has a full-time job and does this for us. So he will edit them and then put them up onto the Women in Drones website. And so one
you,
big
Johnny.
shout out to Johnny. Yes, do a big shout out to Johnny because he does this. And so it does take a bit, but yes, it is available. All right. Hi, Jim.
Well, there's
Hey, Jim
Jim.
just
We could
opened
get
up.
Jim.
Jim, you have been busy.
I've been here this morning. I've just been kind of hiding in the background listening to that great talk.
Yeah. What an exciting event, right?
I wish it was closer.
Yeah, but it's not on the East Coast. For
Hey,
us,
now.
that's on the West Coast. Wait a second, I guess I better say that.
So there are a couple of like I want to say drones and brews events in San Diego too. That happens kind of often down here with little FPV racing at a local brewery. They'll let you hang up banners and stuff, and then you start drinking beer and bouncing FPVs off the walls. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I think they call it barflies.
Barflies, that's right. That's right. Yes.
There you go. Fun stuff. So, and I guess you're flying indoors, so you can mix the brews with the flying, right?
Yeah, I don't think the FAA regulations of 8 hours from bottle to throttle applies.
I know.
Just don't go outside.
Awesome.
Exactly.
Hey, Desi, can I
Oh.
give you an update?
Yes.
So this is Semiride in Michigan area, the Metro Detroit area. And tonight I'm going out to, I finally set up Civil Air Patrol to, and I'm going to start the Part 107 training at the Civil Air Patrol at the Yankee Air Museum at Willow Run Airport. Willow Run Airport is the old B-17 bomber plant Henry Ford built for World War II. And but they have an airstrip, they have a mobility center where they're driving the driverless cars. I mean, autonomous cars. So anyway, they got a track out there, but it's has a lot of space. There are some cargo flights that fly out of that airport, but it's and they got some private jets and stuff like that. But there's a lot of free space. So we're going to start some drone training out there. It'll be through the Civil Air Patrol, and I'm pretty excited about it.
Awesome.
we
Well,
actually
congratulations. Awesome.
So we might expand
Good.
that into some other Civil Air Patrol. The Civil Air Patrol with City Airport in the Metro Detroit area was also interested in it. They have some Skydio drones, and mostly it's adults that have the drones, but we're going to be teaching the kids what to do doing the drones. And then Ken Berry and the Rise team just finished up their competition, their STEM competition on drones. And they have what's interesting about them is these guys know how to take everything apart on a drone. Okay, take it completely apart and put it back together. So and a lot of the folks work in the schools area, but the competition this year was in Oklahoma City. So anyway,
Well,
I appreciate
congratulations. Yeah. Thank you for
we're
sharing.
we're
Awesome.
trying to
Good.
there's a lot of interesting developments in drones.
Nice.
And
Awesome.
yeah, thank you for all the work that everybody on this call does, because they're the numbers are growing.
Yes, we are. And we want to keep it positive. We want to keep it growing in a positive direction. That is for sure. So, really quick, like I'm going to circle over to our chat. Thank you very much, Jeremiah. He said not to speak for Sean, but the challenge with streaming sessions is that it takes too much to get people out of these events. The networking that can really only take place in person. Yes. And then, so the organizers, we want to give people as much reason as we can to be there in person, but totally understandable when it comes to limitations around the budget and logistics. And also, on a different note, and maybe Jeremiah would be able to address this a little bit. Hey, by the way, Jeremiah, I'm definitely going to want you back on here. Okay.
Yeah, pencil me in.
Okay, will do. But another thing that would be probably a logistic is just the whole streaming environment is probably tough in a situation like that.
Well, I mean, it's tough on multiple levels. Have you just seen, like, you can be set up and say, all right, we're going to stream this, and then, oh, there's an outage, or, oh, we don't have the right cord. It's just, okay, now we just made all these plans and spent all this money for what? And the amount that the facilities that vendors will charge for that kind of streaming or even video capture would just make your eyes water. Like, so again, that's not to say that we don't want to capture and enable that content to live on, but kind of, I mean, really cultivating and pushing that in-person experience, that in-person networking. We want that to take priority, and then as it makes sense to stream or capture that content. Like, not to say that isn't a consideration or something that any event organizer doesn't want to do. It's just on their list of things to further support and do, which is after that in-person experience.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as we move forward with our technology, it may become more available, but it was nice that through his opportunities, it would be recorded and played out later. So that is something that is really great.
Well, and you mentioned too, like, I mean, Sean does a number of webinars. I think they do kind of quarterly get-togethers that are virtual or online only. So like those sort of resources are available through EDR, and something to check out.
There you go. More to check out. And I keep seeing Adrian popping in and out of here. Hi, Adrian.
Hey, Desi, thank you so much. I just wanted to shed some light, since Sean's not on, based on my previous experiences, and I've been attending the EDRC for almost 4 to 5 years. This is one of the most valuable conferences as a service provider, essentially being able, as an independent drone service provider, whether it's mapping, inspection. This, a lot of people don't understand that Texas is one of the greenest states in the union. We have the largest output capacity when it comes to sustainable energy, whether it's solar, wind, all those different verticals. But the thing I value the most about this conference is, as a DSP, when I attend multiple conferences, whether it's Exponential, ComUAV, they're all fantastic, but this is uniquely positioned for the drone service provider community to actually land clients. The conversations that you have if you're in the inspection and mapping space is really beneficial to, this is one of the only conferences where I come out with clients or potential customers for me to utilize drones or rovers, either to inspect or map. So I would implore folks that don't have this on the radar, if they can't make it this year, definitely try to configure it to next year's calendar, because like I said, I've met folks, CEOs, operations officers.
Getting hard to hear you, Adrian.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, like I said, this is really beneficial for service providers, because you do have the potential to land some major clients, whether they're in the energy space, mapping, just a great overall conference. And because it's not so large, as far as all the different verticals in the drone space, it's really more personable. You can approach more folks and potential clients. But like I said, this is one of the most beneficial conferences that we go to, and we always walk away with some potential clients or work for our service provider business. So I would definitely implore folks to check it out. And like I said, if not this year, definitely pencil it next year, because in person is really when you can close a lot of these deals and pitch your company. And this is a great venue to do that. So thank you, Desi, for letting me speak.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. And we have Sean back again. So Sean, just so we can fill you in on what's been missing, right? We had Jeremiah and Adrian both spoke very highly of the event and shared a little bit of their takeaway from it. Jeremiah actually stepped in and also filled in where we were regarding whether it would be live streamed or not, and some of the hurdles that it has to come with a live stream. And so we missed you.
Well, thank you guys for doing that. I appreciate it. And so that was not a showbiz thing. I actually did lose internet, but that exactly speaks to what probably Jeremiah was unpacking, which is I would say during COVID, what we call COVID heavy, we obviously did a lot of live stream like everyone and ran into all the fun and environment with that. But what we started to find from live streaming from the live events was really people absorb content asynchronously when they want it, right? Like Netflix, etc. You want to see it whenever you want to see it, or on your DVR. And so that's what we found. So we don't do live stream because we do tend to lose people. So even for the occasional, we'll have 1 or 2 speakers out of 100 who can't be there live. We ask them to record it and send it in advance so we can play it and we can control it. And then what we've found is people then can get the content, but we don't do live stream.
Awesome, awesome. But it's available to them. And
Yeah.
so that's a great feature really to
Right.
offer.
No,
And so
it's yeah, it is good, but we sure appreciate working with Women in Drones and all of our industry partners, and thanks everybody for being there today, and hopefully get some good information out of it, and hopefully we'll be able to connect either live or via webcast or Zoom call in the future.
awesome. Well, there was a lot of great conversation that was had. Thank you, Amy says, even about sharing all the information. You were a wealth of information. So thank you so much for sharing with us. And I'm going to encourage everybody to save the chat. So you want to go to the top or the bottom now and find the 3 dots, and I'll say save chat, because there was a lot of great information put into our chat. And Sean, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing with us. Excited. Boy, you just get me so excited to go and be there and network with everyone. What an amazing event. Super excited for you.
Hey, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Desi. And like I said, onwards and upwards. Looking forward to working with everyone in the industry as we continue to grow.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great week this week. Hope you get out and fly and be safe. That kind of wraps it up.